What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another Comarc Ski video. As you guys have probably seen from the thumbnail and the title, this video is another interview video. And this week, I don't want to get too into it. We get into it in the interview, but this week I am interviewing Jayne, who was a skier for the University of Utah. He also skied on the World Cup and had some World Cup experience and debut this past winter in 2026. So, without further ado, I don't want to give too much away from the interview itself, but I hope you guys enjoyed this week's interview video. It's a great conversation, and if you guys have not seen, I have started a podcast on Spotify where you can also see this episode as well as my previous interview with Zach Ketterson. So be sure to go check out my Spotify and be able to listen to the podcast there too. So I'll get right into the video. All right, everybody, this is another interview video that I'm putting together for the YouTube. I did one last fall with Zach Ketterson, and this one is coming to you with a surprise guest, helped put together with one of my teammates, Ivar Dragon. This is an interview with a former Utah skier, pretty fast skier in the NCAA, and has had some World Cup experience with the U.S. ski team. I'm sitting here with Jayne. How's it going?
Yo, what up, guys? Yeah, it's pretty good. Just getting back into training, and it's really cool because this is the first interview of my professional career, so a bit of a milestone for me as well. Yeah, it's kind of funny to go from Zach Ketterson to another Zach, so I'm happy to keep the Zach pipeline going.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, just thank you for the opportunity. This is going to be super cool getting some backstory to you as a athlete and as a person. And yeah, so let's get started here. I've got a couple lists of questions just to kind of guide the conversation, but we don't have to be too strict to it. If something comes up, we can go off. But where are you from and how'd you get into cross country skiing?
Yeah, I'm originally from just outside the LA area in Southern California. And then yeah, like I sort of grew up doing some snowboarding and surfing in Utah or at Mammoth. And so I was originally gonna do like freeride snowboard when I moved to Bend in middle school, but I started cross country skiing and sort of fell in love with it. So yeah, I didn't really touch cross country skis until I would say seventh grade, and then I don't know, sort of really started training in like freshman or sophomore year of high school.
All right. So what was your high school skiing career like and what convinced you to get to the NCAA?
I would say my high school career was overwhelmingly mediocre. Like I never really had good experiences in at junior nationals or I don't know. I had like maybe three JNQ podiums in my entire junior career. But I think like for me, I just grew up in like a really good culture out of Bend and out of the Pacific Northwest in general. Like I always had people to chase, like Jack Connie when I was growing up, or like Walker Hall. I always looked up to those guys, and so it was really cool to just like sort of see those guys who were older than me like go to college, and it just sort of seemed like that was the thing to do was to just ski in college. And so I can't really say I necessarily made a conscious choice to ski in college. It just sort of seemed like the right thing to do. But with that said, I had like a pretty rough I had a pretty rough recruiting career there going because like I would say I think my best junior nationals result was like 18th. And I think that that sort of put me on the outside of like the top schools to go to, which for me was really frustrating because I had like a certain experience in my mind that I wanted out of college. Um, and in that too, like my first few years of competitively skiing, I even missed junior nationals qualification, um, which was tough at the time, but I don't know, it's sort of like you reach one level and then you do what you can and then you reach another and then you keep reaching new levels and that's sort of what happens. It's not like I chose
Right.
to, continue skiing.
Yeah. So you, like you mentioned, your recruitment process was, a little all over the place. But you skied for University of Saint Scholastica, which is a CCSA school. What made you, or how did that process come to be? What made you come all the way out to Duluth?
Yeah, I mean, sort of the process leading into it was I was super against taking a gap year just because I wanted to like go straight into school, and academics means almost as much as skiing does. So I really just wanted to get my school career going also. But I was also my recruiting year was basically the COVID year too. And so the difficulty with that was all of the skiers that were still in college were getting an extra year. And so that was like taking away spots for incoming
Yeah,
students.
that makes it a little tricky
Um,
and really
yeah,
competitive.
so yeah, exactly. So I graduated high school in 2022, and that's like right around when they decided that they were going to give um, everybody in the NCAA, it wasn't only skiing, an extra year of eligibility. And so it was like every school was like, oh no, our roster is full, our roster is full. And I'm just like, oh no, come on, please give me a spot. But yeah, Scholastica ended up giving me a chance, and it ended up being the only NCAA roster that gave me a spot. And so for that, I'll be forever grateful. And I took that opportunity for a lovely year in Duluth.
So I know, like, even with my personal experience, but also like stories I've heard from other college athletes, that like your freshman year tends to be one of your hardest years, especially as a collegiate athlete, just because you're changing routines, your living space, um, all of the factors that, and especially for you, I mean, trying to go from Bend to Duluth has got to be a huge change. So, how was your freshman year at you know CCS at Saint Scholastica? And I mean, you were a regional champion, so obviously you had a lot of success there. So, how did that come to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can't really pinpoint it to one thing. I think it was just sort of like an accumulation of different things that like sort of took years to culminate. Like for example, like I never really saw success out of my training habits in high school. And so I think like one of them was just like maybe training finally caught up to me, or maybe like I finally, you know, like hit puberty or whatever. I mean, I think like I finally like matured a little bit, both athletically and like I would say psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
But also like I think what a lot of people don't understand or have difficulty understanding is that like a happy athlete is gonna be a fast athlete. And so I think like you can say it's school, you could say it's like a massive change in habit. But I think I was just content with where I was, but I was also hungry to advance my skiing career to the next level. And so I think it's like honestly a combination of a whole bunch of different things.
That's awesome. So, how did trans trans transferring transitioning from Saint Scholastica to Utah? How'd that whole work out?
Yeah, I mean transferring in the NCAA is honestly a pretty complicated process, and like you have to ask your athletic director to put you into the transfer portal, and then you're finally able to talk to other coaches. And so it was honestly like a pretty crazy sort of point in time for me because I entered the transfer portal and started reaching out to a whole bunch of different colleges. I was maybe going to go to MSU, maybe UVM, maybe UNH, quite a lot of different choices. Um, and on April 1st, I get an email from like U1489648 at utah.edu. And I thought it was a prank, honestly, because it was April 1st. But yeah, they reached out to me, and 2 days later I signed on. But I think I just got like I think I just got extraordinarily lucky because I don't think I was at a level at that time where it would have been, a
Yeah,
no-brainer for Zach to go there. So I think I just got super lucky. But at the same time, I while I was lucky, I don't think anybody else in the country would have taken advantage of that opportunity as much as I did.
Yeah. And so at like what points during your time at Saint Scholastica were you thinking like was it more of like a I think I could go bigger? Like, is there some potential here, or was it like this is not the right fit? Because I know that people, signing on to a college team can be a pretty daunting process, especially when you don't know what you're getting into. And then after some time, it can be something that shouts out to you like this is not right, or it's an opportunity. So just kind of curious.
Yeah, I would say like I didn't even sign on to Scholastica until like June of that year. So it was super late. Just because I was so frustrated from like 10 to 15 different college opportunities like slipping away from me.
Hmm.
Um, and so it was sort of always in the back of my mind that I wanted to transfer. Um, just because I was pretty set on studying engineering. And at the time at Scholastic, I was studying math, which is a lot different than studying engineering.
Yeah. So it was a career
And I
choice too.
it genuinely was.
Yeah.
But some good ski results definitely helped with that.
Hmm.
And yeah, like a podium at as super tour for college, and then two more podiums and a win at regionals definitely helped. But um, beyond that, it was mostly just luck to Utah.
Yeah. So then you went to Utah your sophomore year. And then did you have 3 or 4 years at Utah?
Just 3 years.
Just three.
I finished up my third year just recently, and yeah, I mean, I cannot thank Utah enough for my development as a skier. And I think that's one, an important distinction to make, and two, I think like a lot of it has to do with like personal habits in terms of my improvement. Um, and again, just happiness as I studied engineering was super fun. Um, and yeah, I'm going back to Utah. I'll be based out of Utah over the next year to finish my degree, which is super cool.
Awesome. So how was your experience at Utah for those 3 years as a student and as an athlete?
Man, it was so fun. Like being able to have teammates that are a lot older than me, like Tom Mancini was super fun, and Brian Bushy and Walker Hall. Those guys really challenged me athletically, but it's really cool to, you know, sort of be in the same year as like somebody like Max Cluck. Um, so that we can sort of like grow as a skier together. It's super fun, but sort of like a year by year breakdown, if that's what you want. Let me really just dive into the archives here. Um, so my sophomore year um was like the year that I decided to like really start pushing hours. Um, and so like Scholastica was my first year keeping a training log, which one is massive habit. If anybody that's watching this video, if you can do one thing in high school, that's keep a training log. I can't tell you how important that is. Um, so yeah, I mean that's such an important habit to make is just like maybe just taking more control of your training and asking questions and being curious about not only what the workouts you do, but why you do it and the physiology changes that happen because of those workouts. Um, and that's a habit I made when I got to Utah is not only was I asking more questions about training, but I also decided to put what I learned into my training um, while sort of pushing myself in hours. And so that sophomore year, I went from like 580 hours my freshman year, and I made a pretty substantial jump to uh, 700 hours by the end of my sophomore year. Um, and in terms of results, I went to Junior Worlds that year, but I didn't really do anything there. So sort of a failure in my eyes, but that was a big development year for me.
Do you think that
Um,
the jump from like the mid 500s to like a high 600, 700 hour range is like for a college athlete, is that too big of a jump, or do you think that like the because I know the rule of thumb is like 10% each year?
Yeah, I mean, the mindset I was in was I had to catch up. Because like the harsh reality of it is RIMSA, you're racing against 24 to 26-year-old ex World Cup skiers.
Yep.
That's the reality of it. And so in my mind, I had a lot of catching up to do. And maybe some people could take that jump and, um, do too much intensity or not enough recovery, and that could really bite them in the butt. But I don't regret that jump at all, and I think it was for me quite necessary.
Awesome. So then what did your junior and senior year look like?
Junior year, let me think about this. I'm back in the archives again. I went from 700 to 760 hours, but tried to do more intensity. And I think that was a good jump. And uh, I remember being way sicker in the fall than I have ever been. And I was like pretty sick in the fall. I had a sinus infection. Um, and I was like maybe thinking about redshirting too. Um, but I just stuck with it and had some pretty bad results in period one of Super Tour um and junior and senior nationals. I think I was like I really wanted to qualify for U23s. Um, but yeah, I wasn't even close to qualifying for U23s, and I just like had I don't know what I would consider very subpar racing. And then like I'm not sure what happened is right when I got back and right when I started the college season is I started just like progressively accelerating in terms of results. Um, and I can't really pinpoint why. Maybe my training from the summer and the fall was finally catching up to me. Um, but I ended up like having my first RIMSA top 10. And then I pretty much didn't race outside the top 10 for the rest of the season. And I ended up having my first RIMSA podium. And then the next day I had my first RIMSA win. And then 2 weeks later, I won regionals, um, which was incredible. And then what I never would have thought would have ever happened, and everybody else my age would have thought it would never happen, is I actually went to NCAA's for Utah and brought home the NCAA title that year with two All-Americans, which was for me an incredible experience. And to put that into perspective, my freshman year, I was 34th and 37th at NCAA's. And so to get that and then go 2 years later and get a sixth and a ninth at NCAA's was just incredible.
That is awesome. And I know that your senior year, you had a great senior nationals. Um, and I know that you, from your success at senior nationals, you had some World Cup starts. So what was, the balance of being a student athlete at Utah, but also being a World Cup athlete for the U.S. ski team? How was that?
Yeah, so I'll hold on to that question for a second and I'll just sort of catch the listener back up on what I did my senior year. Is I actually trained on my own for a majority of the summer, and I really took control of my training. I planned all my training, and I sort of took my curiosity that I've had in terms of training methodologies over the last 3 years and really put it into my training over the last year. And I went from 700 to 780 with a lot more intensity and starting to incorporate, other strategies from cycling and from running, in terms of like double intensity, which is super interesting. But yeah, had a great summer training, had a great fall of training. Um, and then yeah, I just was like, I was just feeling the best I've ever felt in my entire life in terms of fitness. And I mean, it was such a crazy feeling because you just sort of feel unstoppable and you're just like, you're itching to race after all that training. And so, yeah, I went to, had like an okay racing series in Super Tour. And then just like for the first time in my entire life, perfected a peaking plan for me. And then almost like I was leading at every single checkpoint on the 10K Classic, and then just barely got fourth by 2 seconds, um, which was third American. And then 2 days later, I ended up winning the national championship for the sprint race. And 2 days later after that, I got another um, American podium, and then 2 days after that, I got another American podium. And I ended up having the best senior nationals out of anybody this year, which just looking back 3 years ago, I didn't even make junior heats.
Right.
So, I mean, I think like for me, the progression is important than any singular result. Um, and I just missed the Olympic team by 1 second,
Oof.
which is crazy to think about.
That is really I didn't even realize that, that obviously that's a big factor of, US nationals at that point of the year, but even on an Olympic year, it's really important. But
Yeah, for
putting that
sure.
into perspective, it's like you could have been a college athlete on the Olympic team. That would have been nuts.
That would have been really cool. Yeah. And so, um, but given that opportunity, given those results at senior nationals, I was lucky enough to be super tour leader by the end of that, which granted me period three starts on the World Cup. Um, and for financial reasons and for school reasons, I decided to take those World Cup starts instead of going to U23s. I think just like it made more sense for me to just do one international trip this year. Um, so I went to Germany and Switzerland in January, made my World Cup debut, and then raced six more World Cups through the end of the season, which was super fun.
How was your World Cup debut? I know I watch all the races, and that was pretty cool to see. And you made heats, right?
Yeah, in my World Cup debut, I show up and I'm like, all right, sprint race, skate, this is my thing. I'm about to cook. But then yeah, I got fried in like 65th place.
Oh,
I'm like,
geez.
no, dude. I was like, oh, come on. I was like, oh my God, I swear I'm better than that. Um, yeah, so that was a real eye-opening experience. And then the next day was a 10K classic, um, which I was like, okay, this is like my best race. And I started behind Ivo Niskanen, who's like the goat of classic skiing. And I got a selfie with him, which was sick. And it's
Nice.
so funny too because like we were chatting in his like Finnish accent. I'm like, oh yeah, I start behind you, like jokingly. And he's like, oh yeah, don't catch me. I'm like, bro. It's so funny too that like the jokes, like the jokes that you would say to like another high school skier when you're in high school is like, oh, don't catch me. It's
Yeah.
so funny that that's like they still say that at that level is so
Yeah,
hilarious.
it's really cool like meeting like I've met Zach and I've met Gus a couple times. He did a couple clinics with my club. And it's just cool like when you talk to them that it's like as much as like in your head you're like these are my idols and these are like they're Olympians, these are World Cup athletes, it's awesome. But then you talk to them and they're like, "What's up?" And it's like,
Yeah, it's so
"Yo,
sick. It's so cool that it's just like such a welcoming environment there too. Um, but I remember leaving the the Germany World Cup pretty disappointed. I was pretty devastated because I I I didn't want to show up with the idea that I went there for my debut. In my mind, it was only really a success if I did something with that opportunity because I was gonna make my World Cup debut at some point in my life anyways. And so why would I go there to get my World Cup debut if I can go there with the mindset of, okay, I'm here and I want to be racing at this level anyways. I'm coming for a decent result. And in my mind, a decent result is a top 30.
right."
And so I remember leaving Germany just devastated and heartbroken. I was like, oh my God, dude, I came here to just suck. And I was really disappointed. And so, but it was so nice that, the US guys and and like Gus and Ben and all them were just like, that's sort of just what happens is you show up and you sort of get rolled your first few World Cups. And they were really comforting, but that is not what I went to Europe for. And
Right.
that's just like that's the truth that was going on in my mind. And I chose not to accept those comforting thoughts, even though they were very kind. And so I go to Switzerland and I just get so fired up on the team sprint day because the boys were just cooking and Ben and Gus got second and I got to stand on the podium and get that team photo with them, which for me was really, really special. And those guys obviously they don't understand how special it is for just some random jabron who goes onto the World Cup with them. And so I just got super fired up. I was like, okay, top 30 is dropping tomorrow, which was the classic sprint. And it was like one of the longest sprints on the circuit at altitude for classic, for striding. And it was like all my best attributes, essentially.
Right.
And so I go there, watch Claybo just nose breathe while dropping a World Cup sprint qualification victory. I was
Yep.
like, okay, I'm doing this. And so like I ended up racing super well, had great skis, um, and ended up qualifying 17th, which was super special. I just crossed the finish line, just like, yeah, let's go, dude. And then I just like maybe I was too fired up after that because
And
I
across the
let out
qualifier
my
finish line. Yeah. You're
yeah, dude.
celebrating
I mean, that's literally what it was because
like
I
you
was
won the
too fired up
race.
and then yeah, I ended up leading out my first World Cup heat and just getting steamrolled like maybe a kilometer in. But yeah, it was super special and it was an incredible experience
So
in
you
like the
finished
beauty
that
of
in the top
Switzerland
30.
also. Yeah, I ended up 27th, 28th,
Okay.
somewhere there.
So there's a success story within that
Yeah, for
World
sure.
Cup
And I think
there.
like most of it was honestly a mindset change because obviously you're not going to get any fitter between two weekends.
Right.
And like the competitiveness almost got more competitive on the second weekend.
Yeah.
Because like Playbo and them are coming back from their altitude camps
I
before
also
the
think like
Olympics.
I think it can also be like even in that second weekend you have the mindset of like I've been here before. Yeah, it was last
Yeah,
weekend,
for sure,
but
for sure.
I've been on the start line. So,
Yeah,
the
for
nerves
sure.
are a little less because I mean, yeah, debut has got to be scary, especially you started behind Evo, which is
Yeah,
nuts.
yeah, yeah. It was super, super special, but I was almost like less nervous on World Cup than I was on like the US Nationals starting line. Um, just because I feel like there's less at stake.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, I don't really know why.
Yeah,
And then obviously it's like you can't really like tell your body not to be nervous or more nervous.
right.
It's just like an uncontrollable.
Yeah. So before we keep going in onto like what your senior year, how it wrapped up, um, just like kind of give us a kind of behind the scenes, what's it like in, wax cabin, hotels, warm up, cool down. What's it like on the World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to make it as familiar as I could. Um, but I think the reality is it's just like it's no different than just going to a CCSA race. There's no difference in terms of logistics. Like you're still chilling in your hotel room for a while, or you're still doing homework. You're still eating dinner with your teammates. It's just like it's the same environment logistically, but it's just like it's different people and that stuff. But I would say the biggest change was for sure like the venue is way stricter. Like you have to walk into the stadium a certain way. You have to check the time a lot more often, and you have to remember when the course closes, remember when the course opens. Um, you have to go into the wax truck to get your skis. you're assigned to a tech and you guys will test your skis together after he or she has already tested them. And so like there's just a lot more going on in terms of the actual race environment. But aside from that, it's just like essentially any other race circuit.
That's that's pretty cool. So who was your wax tech?
Um, I got Colin Rogers, who is the SMST2 head coach. And so he's not actually a full-time wax tech. He just does like contracting and guest teching, depending on like who comes and if there's like extra athletes.
Awesome. So you came back from World Cup. What did the rest of your, you know, ski career in your senior year at Utah look like?
Yeah, so after I got back from World Cup, I basically spent the next week like barely training because I was pretty tired from that whole trip, and it was the first time I was in Salt Lake since November 20th, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to spend a week just catching up to school, like meeting my professors, that kind of stuff. Um, and then I really set my eyes on getting an NCAA championships victory or podium. And so I go to a few more college races, um, rack up a few more RIMSA podiums, another RIMSA win. I actually didn't, every single RIMSA race I started this year, I podiumed.
I was gonna say I
Um,
thought I saw that statistic posted somewhere.
yeah. So,
That's
I
really
mean, I was
impressive.
really fired up on that because one thing I've always battled in my entire skiing career has been consistency. I've always struggled with that. And so I think like that means so much to me. Um, but I set my eyes on NCAAs and I skip U23s to just focus on this NCAA buildup. And so I can really come to NCAAs just as primed as I did at US Nationals. And then at the beginning of my peaking taper, I get sick. I get so sick. Yeah, which just like essentially ruins everything. And I got a pretty bad upper respiratory illness that I was pretty much bedridden for a week and a half. And then my first ski back was the pre-race and testing
Oof.
skis at Instalays. And I was just still coughing up a lung. And
Well, you locked in your qualification and it was at home. So, I
yeah,
mean,
for
you
sure.
were sick, but you still had that home turf advantage a little bit, which
Yeah,
had to have helped.
yeah, for sure. But it was definitely, I live with alpine skiers. And it was definitely freaking them out a little bit. And they're like, yo, dude, are you good? And I'm like, yeah, I should be all right. Yeah. I mean, it was like, yeah, it was definitely not what I wanted out of my last few college races. But again, uh, an uncontrollable and stuff like that just happens. And so you just got to live with it. And I think I made the most out of it. I still got sixth and ninth. So yeah, that was just barely enough to bring home the NCAA championship at home, which was super amazing. It's really cool to see like our team is just so consistent across the board that even if, you know, a key Nord skier was sick and if a few of our Alpine skiers ski out, we're still going to take home that NCAA trophy.
Right.
That's just the reality.
That is super impressive and that's awesome. Unfortunate how it, panned out at the end, but um, I mean, obviously you had a great progression throughout your college career and set you up post college. So, that kind of leads me to my next questions like, what's your post college career plans? What are you up to?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said earlier, I still have to finish my degree, so I'm still going to go back to Utah this fall. I have one more semester and a little bit. So I'll still be based out of Salt Lake, still be training with the University of Utah team, um, which is super helpful for me to have the support of being able to finish school while still pursuing skiing. And then I'll be racing for SMS T2 over
Oh,
the starting this year.
awesome. So are you just going to be doing that remotely or
Yeah, for the most part, I'll train by myself. here in Bend for most of the summer, and then I'll go to Norway for 2 weeks for camp, and then I'll go to Stratton for 3 to 4 weeks at the end of the summer, and but yeah, I think it's a really good transition.
Awesome. Um, I kind of skipped over this, but Lake Placid World Cup finals.
Oh
How were
yeah,
those?
man, what just an insane environment. Like for sure the most fans I've ever seen on the side of a ski trail. NCAA's does come close, but yeah, it was just an unreal environment. And I had like a decent 10K classic. I got like 48th, and my old teammate Brian Bushy got 49th, and so that was really fun to like ski with him in theory.
Yeah,
Um,
in the time
and
checks.
then yeah, I was getting splits off him the whole race, which is super funny. I was like, oh, this is just a super tour,
Right.
which was super cool. And then I had like a frustratingly close skate sprint. I qualified 33rd, which is so frustrating.
Yeah.
Not because of the result, but because of like the missed opportunity of skiing heats in the States, which would have been really cool.
Yeah. Did you, I can't remember, did you start the 20K?
Yeah, and I had a pretty rough time.
Yeah.
I was like 70th place.
Yeah, that was a rough day. And I know the conditions like that whole weekend were insane, but um yeah, I know that Ben Dolby is an old club teammate of mine, a really good friend of mine. I know he had a great day from like the younger guys that were there, but yeah, it was a brutal day for
Yeah,
everybody.
Ben ripped that day. That was sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool to see
Yeah.
Ben's progression as well.
Did you start around Muzzy when he double pulled the
Yeah, dude, I started right in front of him. I started right in front of him. And that was crazy because I hear him breathing super hard behind me. And I'm like, yeah, it's about time Muzzy passed me. But he passed me like at the top of the course on skate skis, which for those who don't know, Lake Placid is like you climb for 5K and you climb for 2.5K and then you descend for 2.5K.
yes.
And for him to pass me on lap one, 2.5K of only climbing on skate skis in a classic race is just absurd to think about. And he passed me. He says track. I move over. He passes me, and I look down. Skate skis. I'm like, oh hell no. You gotta be kidding me.
Well, I mean, that was I don't know if you like heard the stories about what happened for him that day, but yeah, that was like it was I know that there was like for the audience, there was like a bus, there was busing transportation issues to the venue. And Muzzy's Uber, his ride was very late, and so he didn't get to test skis, and so he was like, F it, I'm gonna double pull it. So you being started right behind him, coincidence is so funny.
Yeah, I mean it was insane too because like I guess like he still showed up and like even our bus was late too and we had to drive ourselves, but like he still showed up and was like on the edge of could test skis, maybe didn't have time to test skis, but he was still like, oh yeah, I just don't even want to test skis. Let's just go for
Yeah.
it.
That's the mindset you gotta have. And he like seventh, or I want to say he had a pretty
He
good
was
result.
he was 12th, I believe,
12th. Yeah. So he's right
which
off
I
the
mean
top
for
10.
him nowadays is an insane result.
It's a great result. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
that, like watching the races, because home, I didn't go out this time. I went to Minneapolis. That was a really cool experience. But watching it from here was like, oh, that looks rough. But there's a lot of people there, and the community really showed up even despite the conditions, which is really awesome. So
Yeah, for sure.
um, so kind of don't want to take up too much of your time. I'll just ask a couple more questions.
Oh yeah, no
Um,
stress. I got nothing going on.
um, what is your training year, upcoming training year look like? Summer, fall, winter periods, like, or even past years? What does your training look like?
Um, I would say because I'm studying engineering, I have like a pretty experimental and strategic approach to training. Which I think is a good perspective to have, but obviously not the only perspective to have towards training. But like I said, the last 2 years, I've like planned my summer training myself, just based on like what I think I need to work on, and it used to be more technical goals, but now it's more like physiology based goals, and I know I'm a high lactate producer, and I know I'm a high lactate clearer. Um, that's just like the way my body's set up. And so like now my main goal is to just like train the best I can based on what I'm given essentially for the year. And so like what that means this year, for example, is I'm not increasing my hours relatively a lot. I'm doing like about an 8% jump from 780 to 830. But within that is I'm doing a lot more intensity. And so like almost every week I'm doing a threshold workout in the morning and a threshold workout in the afternoon on a Tuesday, let's say, for example. So I'm doing that once a week. And so that's like 45 minutes of threshold in the morning and 45 minutes of threshold in the afternoon. And that's what you see out of a lot of runners and cyclists is these more like smaller, more manageable workouts, but just a lot more of them. And I think that's where the sport is going, is like more on the scientific of like sports science side of training is like maybe not none of these like 3 hour massive workouts where you do like 9 by 10 minutes that you hear like people from Europe do. Yeah, I don't think that's like I think those days are behind us. Um, but besides that, I am doing a pretty traditional American periodization plan where I have like 3 building weeks and then like an easier rest week. Um, but for me, the distribution is changing based on what I'm hearing from like my teammates from like Norway and that stuff is maybe the idea of a rest week. The idea of a rest week is sort of outdated in the sense that uh, it's maybe like too much recovery. Hold on, time out. Let me explain this. You need to like you need to build fatigue in order to train effectively, and you need to maintain fatigue. And as that fatigue, becomes relatively less harsh on your body, is when you build fitness, essentially. And so when you take 7 days of pretty like big rest, you're sort of dropping the fatigue to a point where it's harder for you to build back up again on the next few building weeks. And so I'm not eliminating rest weeks, and that's not my point. I would just say that for me, after I've trained quite effectively for myself over the last few years and built a big base for myself, is I'm going to take like 3 days pretty easy, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, pretty easy, no intensity. Maybe I do like an hour spin on Monday. Maybe I do 2 to 3 hours on Tuesday and 2 to 3 hours on Wednesday. After that period is done, your body's recovered, quite a bit. And so after that, I'm shifting it more towards a volume focus so that my body is still on the rise while building some more volume for myself. And I think theory, that's what Claybo does is people are like, oh, Claybo doesn't take rest weeks. Okay, that may be true, but his rest week is a shift of distribution between less intensity and more volume because he's trained so much. He's trained like 10 years of 1,000 hours, which is unfathomable. And to him, taking 5 days of no intensity and of 4 hours of easy volume, maybe to his body, that's what a rest week looks like.
Right. So that's a great insight to your training, and I think I think a big thing that I took away from this past year was like I wrote my own training plan for this summer too. And I know we've texted back and forth about kind of that idea. But I think the biggest thing that I learned throughout like the racing part of the season was that like yes, we have our team training plan. This is what we're doing for the week, but I just have to do what feels right for me. So like if we were doing like 9 to 10 hour weeks in season just to keep the consistency, keep our bodies moving, stay fresh, I might even say like, well, I'm not moving enough. So maybe I do 30 minutes extra, maybe I do an hour extra here or there. And I think that's like a huge part that like people should take away, that like plans are guidelines. They're very helpful. You should follow them. But at the end of the day, you have to like follow the data, but listen to your body, which is like a huge thing. Like
Yeah.
sleep score, HRV, those are big factors. And like you could look at that data and go, oh, I shouldn't train today. But at the same time, you should go, well, I
Yeah, for
felt
sure.
like I slept great. I'm going to do just a little bit lighter
Yeah.
because maybe my body's telling me something.
Yeah. And a lot of people think that like full rest is like what you need to do, but like there's a reason why we do pre-race before race day. And that's like because your body wants to be primed and your body is so used to doing certain things that it may be in certain circumstances more beneficial to do a recovery spin for 45 minutes or a recovery walk for 45 minutes than it would be to alternatively take full rest. And I think like what based on what you just said, I'll give you my three main takeaways that I've learned over the course of, planning my own training and just training in general in racing and in life and school. And three things. Number one, find intentionality in what you do, meaning like know what it means to take rest and why you take rest. Know what it means to do a threshold session and why you do that. Know what it means to um like why you do volume or why you do so many different things, why you do strength, why you warm up. It's so easy to just learn as you go and ask questions and find out the why behind certain sessions. I think like for me, that's the biggest change that I've started doing. The second thing is what you just said is being adaptive to change based on like how your body feels and like look at the plan, yeah, for reference, but training should be part of your life. Your life shouldn't be training. And so I think it's really, really important to say, oh, I have a school project that's due on Friday. Maybe I'll work through that throughout the week, and maybe I'll shift training a little bit on Friday so that I'm not overstressed for this school project, for example. And then the third thing, um, I forgot. So
So there's only
yeah,
two.
so there's only two. What could that
Well,
possibly have been?
maybe it'll come back to you.
Yeah,
Um,
the first
but
two are pretty important.
yeah. Yeah, kind of as we wrap up, any other advice to the listeners that, maybe our high school athletes that want to ski in college, or our, older athletes that want to, race super tour? Anyone listening, any advice?
Yeah, anyone listening, I would first listen to those previous 2 points. The next point, if I remember it. Other than that, make sure you're just having fun. Like this sport should be fun. It should be like it should be stressful and um it should steer your life in certain directions, but it definitely shouldn't control it. And it shouldn't control the way you think of yourself. And it should complement your life. I think like so many people and I for one was super stressed coming out of high school going into college just about like who I wanted to be and what I thought my college experience should look like. But just like make one decision and then make the next. Solve one problem and then solve one more. And then after you've solved enough problems and made enough decisions, then you will find yourself in like the next part of your life. And I think like that's a really cool way to think about it, is to just be like be fluid and be um be accepting of what your current situation is, whether you're the best junior skier in the country or not. Know your current situation and then make training decisions or life decisions based on that. And I think that fluidity mindset is really important.
Well, yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing this, peace of mind with us. And I'm sure you have another session to get to this afternoon, your time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, no stress. And I'll do a bit of a self plug here too, is follow Jayne on Instagram. And I've recently published all of my training logs with a link in my bio. And so what you can learn from that is I have takeaways from essentially every single session. If you really want to go that far in depth, or if you just want to watch summaries and look at the hours that I've trained, that's cool too. And so I would just check out my training logs and ask me some questions, and I'm an open book. And yeah, besides that, that's it.
yeah, make sure you go follow him on all his socials. And, you're getting some social media content out there too, which is great for the sport, great
Yeah, I am.
exposure.
I've been inspired by Cole Murick himself.
Well, I will let you get to your second session. Thank you for your time. And yeah.
Yeah, dude, perfect.